G'day mates from Australia, and welcome to the weekly docket.
Hey guys, good morning. I hope everything is working here. I think it is. The mic fell off last night, so I was fixing that just before it started. And thanks to the member who gave me the intro. I'm not sure I clicked it fast enough to catch all of the first part of it. I'll try to do better next week before I switch. All right, so let's go here. I think you already know where I am heading. Did the cult get to the defense team's families and made threats? So that's going to be Richard Allen, I'm sure. And let's see what we got on that. All right. So yeah, let's start with that one and get this one out of the way. It's pretty interesting, but we've talked about it a lot as well. All right. So what happened? Well, this is pretty wild. Here's a picture of one of the defense attorneys motioning to Richard Allen's family, his wife and his mother. Let's go. Let's get out of here. He came out of, the hallway behind the courtroom. I think he was in chambers before that, and went straight to them, motioned, let's go. And he left. And that was it for them. What was going on? So apparently this issue of leaked evidence was boiling to the surface. And of course, there were pictures that were leaked that was conceded by the defense in their filing, and maybe more things too. That's certainly being talked about. I don't know. Did Richard Allen even know what was going on that day? They brought him over for this alleged status conference and to discuss other matters before the end of the month hearing. I don't know what he knew or if he knew really even what happened. I assume that they told him this wasn't planned. Okay. This was not planned. That morning, they had filed a brief on behalf of Baldwin, who's the guy, I think the guy in the blue jacket there, saying, hey, Judge, if you were to kick me off of this case because of this leaked evidence or whatnot, that would be devastating to the case. You only have limited authority to do it. My client should have the counsel, of his choice, and you appointed me or the court appointed me, and we've developed a bond. We're well into this case, coming to trial. That's not the right sanction if there should be a sanction. And his attorney, which is kind of strange that he got an attorney to make this argument for him, said if a sanction is warranted, then just dock me some pay for some hours. And sometimes, at least when I've seen it, if the court gets upset at something that happens or whatever, they'll hit the attorney with a financial fee. Either they'll make them pay some money to the other side for something they caused or some kind of fine or something like that. So it was reasonable for him to suggest that as an alternative if the court were upset. But I don't really know, beyond the pictures, which bad enough, what else may have gotten out there. I just think it's wild that he gets a lawyer to appear on his behalf, haven't seen that, and then file this brief, and then a few hours later quit the case, okay? Because the whole point of the brief was, if you sanction me by removing me from the case, you may be exceeding your authority, which if that were to be seen that way by an appeals court, it would put the conviction, if there ever was one, in jeopardy. So stepping out of the case kind of removes that as an issue depending on what the circumstances are around it. Now, his lawyer for the lawyer said later on, I think to a news agency, that, okay, they quit the case, but it was under coercive circumstances, which does point to some kind of serious disagreement occurring. What I saw in the media was that before the scheduled hearing, the lawyers were back in the judge's chambers, apparently talking about whatever was going on. And that happens. Okay. That happens. And I guess some kind of conflict arose to the point that they thought it would be better to just quit the case, which is really bizarre because they made some good points about why they shouldn't be, or the one attorney shouldn't be thrown off the case. And they know that, if they quit the case right then, that Allen doesn't have a lawyer right now. He's going to have to wait to get appointed one. That lawyer is going to come up to speed and his case is going to be delayed. And I haven't agreed with a lot of the things the defense has argued, but you have to agree that they've been a zealous set of advocates for him, right? So for them to decide to pull off of it, from their mindset, it must have been a pretty serious issue. And I do not think that they would drop out of the case to avoid any kind of normal kind of sanction, either money or getting fired off a case. I mean, when I've been in cases where lawyers have been sanctioned, they pay it and they roll on. I mean, they take the butt chewing from the judge and they roll on. So I don't think that they would quit just for that reason. It just doesn't make sense to me. So what's going on? So I've already commented on some of the reasons, but avoiding a sanction, is that really what the situation was here? I don't think so. I don't think a personal sanction that they would quit a client. Okay. Cause I think they take their profession seriously, and you don't walk away from somebody just because things get tough. Okay. That's not why you quit a case. The other thing I didn't mention here, but I have mentioned talking about it somewhere else, is once you've appeared in a case, generally speaking, you can't leave that case. You can't just quit the case without the judge's permission. So if you're like, well, he withdrew out of the case to avoid a sanction, the judge doesn't have to let you out of the case. The judge could say, nah, come on into the courtroom and let's deal with what happened. And even if you were to be able to quit the case, it doesn't mean that you can't be sanctioned. So you don't get to decide whether you avoid sanctions or not. Now, if the judge were going to sanction him if he stayed in the case, but he quit, and they wouldn't sanction him, that could be an avoiding the sanction thing. But I don't see them avoiding sanctions to quit, that being the reason to quit, unless the sanction were something they thought if they stayed in the case would hurt their client, because I think they're very serious about representing him to the best of their ability. So I can't leave that out of the equation. I can't say, well, they just decided not to care about that and only worry about themselves. I don't see that really. So did they have a conflict with Richard Allen? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Conflict with someone else, and that's another normal reason to get out of a case? No, they would have known that ahead of time. I think this came off of this meeting with this judge, because in the morning their posture was leave us in the case. Avoid embarrassment. I don't see that one either that's not a reason for a serious attorney, and these guys have been serious about this case, pursuing it hard, to drop out of a case. Unless it were really going to be something that affected somebody they knew or something like that, something that would overwhelm their position with their client, creating a conflict with their client or something like that. And that leads me to the last one, which is avoiding untenable conditions. So it is possible that in the discussion with the judge back in chambers, the judge said, well, if you don't want to leave out of this case, you can stay on the case, but I've had X amount of problems with you and evidence or whatever. And so I'm going to, I'm just making something up here. I'm going to say that all the evidence that's under seal or is provided confidentially can't be in your office anymore. It has to be at this repository, at this place, because I can't trust you with it. And when you need to access it, you go here and you access it and you go back, and then they say, well, we can't operate a case like that, judge. And well, if you want to stay on it, that's how you'll have to do it, because you can't be trusted. And then they say, well, we're not going to compromise how well we represent our client. If that's the way you're going to force us to do the case, then we have to withdraw out of it. And she says, well, then if that's what you want to do, fine. That would be a quote unquote coercive circumstance. And there could be others where they could view it as compromising their ability to represent their client. And I feel like the comments made, the fact that they were trying to stay in the case early in the morning, they seemed to leave the courthouse in pretty much a huff. I mean, the one guy left, didn't even come through the courtroom, and then the other guy goes and gets the family and says, let's go. I think there was some serious disagreement with the judge there, so I just don't know. Let's see if we got any comments on this. So this was kind of the first comment that came up along the same lines. Are they under threat from the Odin peeps? And I hear that. However, I don't think so. I mean, that morning they were filing a brief saying, let us stay in the case. And then after that, they leave the case. So I don't think there's anything to that. The lawyer could have said they were threatened by outside parties. Instead, he said coercive circumstances. And that is so vague as to me indicate that probably was a disagreement with the judge there. And they don't need to tell the judge for 2 hours, we're scared now to appear in this case. I hear what you're saying. I just don't think that's the reason here. I think they would have handled all that differently. Of course, the first judge on this case kind of quit with his order, talking about how terrible it would be to try to handle this case and bloodlust and all this stuff. But these guys, I think it's fair to say, have not shied away from stepping into this. They wanted the cameras there. They filed all kinds of explosive things whenever they get the chance to do it. So I tend to doubt they would leave for that reason. That would be pretty hardcore. And if that were the reason, I think the hearing would have been handled differently. That's just my opinion. When the judge said it was unexpected and they'll be dealing with it and we'll get him a new lawyer and stuff, I feel like something happened in that chambers meeting which drove this. But I don't know. So your guess is as good as mine. This is just what I'm thinking about it. But let's transition over to the Odin thing, since that's gotten brought up a couple times, and Norse paganism and Odinism. And we probably haven't heard the last of that, right? Even if they get a new lawyer, that might be an avenue that they want to continue to pursue, because the Franks hearing is floating out there. The judge kept the date for October 31st, but she's not going to make the new lawyer argue these motions and things then. I think she just wanted to keep that on the calendar, and the new lawyer can say what they're ready to do or not do. And she's already said she doesn't think that, the trial date, of course, is going to work in January for the new lawyer. So I don't think we're getting any Franks hearing at the end of the month unless this lawyer comes up to speed right away. And I just doubt it. They don't even know who it is yet. But I will say on the member side, we usually vote on a topic to talk about every couple of weeks. And the vote was for Norse paganism. So we're going to make that stream. I normally would be doing it today or earlier, but I haven't yet. And the reason is because I'm talking to somebody later today who knows a lot more about this topic than I know, and has an actual background that's relevant for this. So we're going to speak later today, and then hopefully set up a live stream on this topic for next week. And we might make that one public, even though it was a member thing, because, if I can get somebody who actually knows what they're talking about instead of me talking about it, that might be useful for everybody to kind of understand the parameters of this, because throwing out white supremacist Odinist creates the specter of, they're all dangerous and they're all coordinated to murder each other and stuff like that. Is that the actual reality? Hey, I don't know about that. But, the defense is trying to do what they are supposed to do, which is defend. And does it have merit or not? That depends on the facts of the case, of course, but how you conceive it in light of this Odinism really depends on what you think about Odinism. And I don't think that so many people were experts on it at the time that this was put out there. So we could all probably learn something from somebody who had reason to know about this before any of this came up. So we'll get to that. Comment, the judge seemed to still be upset when addressing the lawyer situation. Yeah, I think that's fair. She said, so it's unexpected and outside of our control, I think were words she used. Again, I think that's all pointing to the fact that something happened in the chambers meeting that derailed all that. Now, if you think, well, the outside of our control is threats and things, I get that. But it's still not my sense. My sense is that she was speaking off the cuff because something had happened with these people, probably in the nature of a disagreement over how the case was going to move forward. That's my thought. I don't think these people are being threatened by other people. But they had all this Odin stuff out there, and then they sure lost the momentum of that when it came out that the pictures were leaked, some of the crime scene pictures, and maybe other information about the case and how they have filed some things. It's also maybe not comporting with how the court wanted that done. So they were facing an issue with the judge apparently, and PR side as well. So I cannot say for certain, obviously, what happened with that. I will say that I've seen the alleged picture of the F on the tree, and it's not an F. I mean, it can be one if you want it to be one, but it could be a T, and it can be this, and it can be that. And I didn't look at the other pictures, but the F thing is not convincing to me at all. What I saw, at least, it just that's imagination. I think for that, maybe in relation to some other things, it would be more material, but I don't think so. So not on that. So if you have seen the F, and you saw an F and not just whatever, then you can see better than I can. But we'll leave Richard Allen's case behind for now, because I think that's all we really can know about it at current. With the judge holding the hearing date of the 31st, I think she intends to speedily appoint new counsel. So something will happen with it pretty soon. And the one lawyer is going to file a written motion to withdraw, even though she's already said it's as good as done. So he may say something in there about why that's out. As outspoken as these attorneys have been, whether they were threatened off the case, which would be an injustice, an absolute injustice, or whether they think the judge put conditions on them that made it untenable to continue representing, I think they'd want that out there in some kind of way if they can possibly do it. That's my sense. Because again, I think they take it very seriously. I don't agree with a lot of things they say. That doesn't mean that I don't think they were serious about defending the case. Our buddy Tim Ferriter, Boxcar Tim Ferriter, is back in court asking for a post-conviction pre-sentencing bond so that he could be out of the jail box for a little bit. So he's thinking outside the box, but I think the judge is thinking more about why don't you stay in the box? So the judge listened to all the nonsense about why he should be on a GPS monitor for a little while. Didn't seem persuaded, but said that he would take it under advisement and issue a ruling. Tim, you're not coming out, buddy. You're gonna stay in jail and prison until your sentence is over. That's just how it's gonna be. So here's a good question that I don't know the answer to, but I did see something about it online. The question is, why do I think Tim Ferriter got away with passing evidence to Tracy and company in the middle of a trial while his lawyers were in the sidebar? I'd have to see a little bit more about it. I don't know that there was a prohibition necessarily about it from him talking to his wife or whatever. And maybe there was some no contact order. So I can't tell you for sure. I don't know. But, for next week, I'll see if I can see that, because I think Court TV or Law and Crime or somebody had put that up there about moving, evidence back and forth around between them or whatever. So I'm not sure what that was, but I will see if I can figure it out. All right. Got a member here, and thanks for that. I think sometimes, and I'm not sure about in your case, if somebody rejoins, it shows up here. But either way, thanks a lot, because it's interesting to me because the members give me a lot of feedback and they vote on topics that we talk about, stuff like that. So I enjoy that and try and make that worthwhile and interactive, and with free stickers. And if I ever finish giving away the old stickers, then I can do better stickers. It wasn't the best, but they are free. All right. Charlie Adelson's about to go to trial. I think his jury selection comes up next week. And there are a lot of channels covering it. Now Court TV, I think, is involved in it heavily. And the local channel, AA Legal Focus, Judy, the internet lawyer, she is all over this case. So she's a great resource for the actual particulars of the case and what's going on. She knows a lot about it. But what I know about it is that a strip club shot girl got with her ex-boyfriend and his friend and convinced them apparently to go up to the top part of Florida and murder Dan Markel. Okay, that happened, right? So Dan was a problem for his ex-wife in that she couldn't win in court the ability to move the kids to South Florida. So Dan was a problem. Then what happened? Then the next thing you know is hitmen travel north and deal with the problem by murdering him. So all the jury's got to do here really is to figure out what's the connection between Dan being a problem that the family wished wouldn't exist, and then hitmen traveling north who had no other connection with him to deal with said problem. That's a big issue for Charlie, because logically you would say, well, somebody hired the hitmen, somebody who had motivation to remove the problem. Now, if it's not his ex-wife directly, Wendy, who the hell was it? Well, the state says it was Charlie Adelson, and they say they have the evidence to back that up. It certainly was somebody. It's not a mystery here of really what happened about the murders, because they know who pulled the trigger. They know where they came from, and they're going to have some evidence that Charlie was the one who set them up to do it. So we'll see if they win this case. But if I were Charlie, I would plan on staying where I'm at for quite a long time. So that's what I think about that. Yeah, I don't know. I can't resist putting up some of Charlie's early shots where the police were clearly combing for evidence through his hair. And you can see the picture here with his orange, whatever that is, hoodie or whatever on there. I don't know if that was his privately owned one getting ready for prison, or if they gave that to him or not. But he's looking a little different there. You can see him in the blue talking to a lawyer there. But I think he's in trouble with this one. Okay. I think he is in big trouble. But we'll see on this one. But it's up. It'll be getting a lot more media attention. I think it should get more than it is, because it's such an insane case. But we'll see how it picks up. Alex Murdaugh, you probably already saw this, that his lawyers are pootling and scores a point, gets one in the basket. when the Court of Appeal says, yes, we will stay your appeal so that you can file your motion for new trial at the circuit court level. I looked this morning and I haven't seen that motion filed. I thought they would do it essentially right away. Okay, yeah, it's only a couple days later, so it's not like they're late or anything. I'm going to just check to see if it was filed, because they already drafted the motion, because they attached it as an exhibit, this draft motion, to the request at the Court of Appeals level. So they'll file that, and the judge will look at it and decide to give this hearing or not. And the judge is, I think, got to give the hearing. You have to, because of the level of evidence they have supporting the motion. That isn't to say it happened. Okay. The point is, did they bring up enough that the judge should look at it and go, yeah, I do have to at least call these people in here and see what the hell happened, and listen to the other side tell me whether it did or didn't happen. And I think with what they have, you got to do that. You got to check into the shenanigans. And while most lawyers think that I've talked to think that either the case was not proved against Alex Murdaugh, or that he just didn't do it at all, I think he did do it. And so I don't have a problem with the verdict. But if the clerk were talking to the jury about the parties and who to believe or not, I would have a problem with that, even if it were Ted Bundy, because that's not how trials are supposed to work. You don't get to decide, well, before the trial, this person's so guilty, we just don't have to follow any rules. That's the whole point of having the trial, is figuring it out and having a process that applies to everybody. So again, I'm not saying the clerk did these things, but I am saying that I think Murdaugh's attorneys have brought up enough that the judge should hear it and decide that. Of course, they're not going to want Judge Newman to do it, so that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And I don't have anybody telling me where they're from, but when you do that and I see it, I'm going to interrupt whatever I'm saying and let everybody know about it. Thomas Creech, death penalty situation. And that's not anything kind of too crazy about this, but I thought it would be interesting to look at, just because of the mess that the death penalty is. So this guy committed a double murder in 1974, and then he killed an inmate in 1981. Now, Idaho hasn't had an execution since 2012. This guy's been on death row for 4 decades or more. Now they have passed this law there that, well, if we can't get the drug combination that we need, which they can't, then we can use a firing squad. And I'm dubious about whether the federal courts are not going to slow that down and really scrutinize their process and stuff like that, because they frequently do. So however, courts had not blocked any of this yet from what I saw. And that's, I think, likely because they have this process that goes through the legal method of using lethal injection that they can't actually do because they can't get the drugs. And then it goes to the firing squad thing. And I think if they got that far, maybe a court would intervene or whatever. But guess what? Wait. You have to wait for the guessing part, because I got some responses on this. Southampton, New York. Hello there. And the great state of Pennsylvania, which definitely has some cool things in it. And Fairfield, Connecticut. Man, the Northeast is well represented here. And hopefully we're going to get up there in the next couple of months as the winter comes and get back out to New Hampshire and the White Mountains. Oh, wow. Japan. That is very cool. Hopefully you can wade through the Southern accent here and understand what I am saying. All right. So back to Creech. His execution has been delayed anyway, because the clemency panel that they have there has decided to grant him a hearing. And what's interesting about that is the original judge who sentenced him to death and then affirmed that sentence more than once says you shouldn't execute him now. And I think the original DA agrees. It's been 4 decades. That penalty is not needed or appropriate anymore. Interesting. Jail staff too, have said that no, this guy doesn't deserve to be executed now. And one of them, I think, said, if we had a riot in this prison, I would go straight to his cell, because that's where I'd be the safest, because he is always working to intervene, to help staff and to settle conflicts in the prison and stuff. So I don't know the guy, don't know anything about him. But it's interesting that it's not like his family is what persuading the clemency panel to move forward here, but rather people who normally would be on the other side of this guy. So maybe he shouldn't be executed. And while I have no problem with murderers being killed, that psychologically is an issue with me. I do agree with the problems of, can you know that you got the right person and stuff. And I also think if you can't do it in 4 decades, your system is broken. You're just wasting money and it's all stupid. Sorry, I'm a little distracted as a baby deer walking outside, because we have a salt lick out there and it's enjoying it. It's raining in the Northeast. Maybe we sent our rain up to you, because we did have some of that yesterday. And Oh, how about that? Raised in Raleigh, but now in Japan. That is very cool. And San Diego is sunny. I'm not surprised by that. I was talking to somebody who was there yesterday. And Indiana, where some of these crimes are coming from. Good morning there as well. All right. Japan's probably one of those places I'm never going to go to that I wish that I had. There are a few of those. Somebody notes here. Favorite pro program. We will mention him in a minute, even though he wasn't on the thumbnail. Was found guilty on 76 counts 1 year ago, this coming Thursday, and deservedly so. All right. All quiet on the whining front. Sarah Boone, to my knowledge, has not written any more letters since she got this new lawyer. Is it her patience that's causing that, or is this person actually satisfying her demands for how her case should be handled, or some of both, or whatever? But either way, I haven't heard a peep from her. And Darrell Brooks, he's not really talking much either, is he? Would you have been surprised if he's filing a bunch of garbage and handwritten motions and alleging abuse and outrageous things and stuff like that? Nah, I haven't seen any of that either, although I guess I have not checked lately. Oh yeah. So back to this deer for a second. It's now moved out to just outside the window, and it has little spots on it. So it's a buck. So that's nice. And it's by itself, or at least it looks like it. Or he, I guess I can go ahead and gender him since I see where the antlers will be. All right. Wait, somebody says that she has a new letter. Dude, I haven't checked. When did that come out? Because I checked recently, and I don't check every case in the morning before I start, but I'll have to look and see, because maybe the slide is already obsolete. Milwaukee Brew. It doesn't always work out. You don't always have the qualifications of a Darrell Brooks to be pro se. Obviously, the guy was essentially an expert in all things legal. And this defendant, who was some kind of dating app predator, isn't that all the people on it? Hey, I'd like to go pro se. Judge, you don't say, well, no way. So this judge says, I'm not going to let you do it. This guy apparently has been through, I think, 5 lawyers since he was arrested, and has had 3 public defenders tossed off the criminal case. And he says, I would prefer to go pro se. I don't want to wait another 3 to 6 months for an attorney who's not going to help me. This is going to be the same thing all over again. But this judge said that he'd already had the colloquy with this guy and didn't find him competent to go forward. And that's more of a dunk than it sounds like, because since you have a constitutional right to represent yourself, if you're competent to stand trial, the level of competence that the court can add on top of that to represent yourself is very limited. We've talked about many times it can't be a bar exam, or the evidence rules, or it's more, can you speak English? Do you know what's going on and have an understanding and stuff? So is this judge really justified in denying this guy's right or not? I don't know. I haven't seen what he said when they had the discussion, but there's supposed to be a very minimal amount of extra competence that they can put on you to deny the exercise of this constitutional right. Consider that Darrell Brooks made it, and some of these other lunatics like Bradley Yon and stuff. So that's kind of a dunk on this guy. I don't know if it's warranted or not. I just can't say, but they'll have to get him another lawyer. Somebody says the new letter is about Brian not paying her alimony and domestic relations case. Well, thanks for letting me know that. I'll find that. And don't shoot the deer. I'm not going to shoot him. We don't shoot him here. If you want to eat one, then I have no issue with somebody shooting it. But if you're not going to eat it, don't shoot it. And instead, we just enjoy them being around. They're all over the place. It's gorgeous in Austin. Dying to hear my thoughts. The media slant is driving me nuts. Not sure which case you're talking about there, but we all just do the best we can to give us honest advice to each other. And I think in the chat here does that too. The people tell what their honest thoughts are, which I appreciate, and are fairly open-minded. And good morning to Judy, and mentioned her, of course, on the Adelson case. It's not the only case that she watches, and certainly not the scope of her channel, which is far broader than that. But for the Adelson case, she's an excellent resource, as I think you all know. All right, so let's leave Milwaukee with this guy failing to reach the vaunted status of pro se representation. Sarah Boone Light. This is Angela Wagner, who was involved in the Piketon County massacre, where 8 people were murdered in a family by another family. So that's not good. And she wrote about a 10-page letter to the judge asking for 2 new lawyers, please. And I don't want more than that. I have 2, so I just want to replace them with 2. I don't mean to impose. And female, please, if you would. I would rather have a female lawyer if it's possible, Judge. And I thank you for your time, Judge. So she was very polite to the judge in what she wanted and spent a long time explaining it, why she feels like these lawyers are not helping her to the degree that she wants on her case. So no, these numbers don't work, and no Rain Man-esque Wapner at 5 list of 6,022 hours, 3 phone calls, 22 minutes, and things like that Sarah likes to do in her spare time. Here's a good one, because I don't like to close out on just all sad, murdery kind of cases and things like that. You know, one of the things you do when you try to self-assess is figure out how do you play to your strengths, right? And if you're a dummy and you want to commit a crime, why not be a dummy? I mean, be authentic, be your true self. So this picture here is of a guy who's standing still to try and mimic being a dummy. I can't tell that he's even in the store, but he's trying to act like a mannequin. And he stood there totally still on the security camera until all these stores closed down, and he went around and robbed some kiosk or whatever that was there. And ultimately he was caught. So he was a dummy to start with, and he was convincing as a dummy while the stores closed. But then because he was a dummy, he was also caught. So let's see what we got on this. I love the dumb criminals. I did turn this mic up a hair this morning, but the other thing was last night I heard a big bang, and when I came in this morning, this whole contraption here had broken. Fortunately, I had another one, but it fell to the floor. But it is apparently working. Judge Gold, that's the judge in Judge Allen's case, had a pained look on her face. Law enforcement thrilled to get rid of Allen's team. The leak of photos occurred months ago. Why the hand-wringing now? So all good points there. She definitely did have a pained look on her face. And as I say, I think this all kind of came up, not planned by anybody that morning, or they wouldn't have acted the way they did. And I would think that law enforcement would be glad to get rid of them for lots of reasons. And one is they're pushing lots of things in this case that law enforcement thinks are wrong. Or if you have a dimmer view of law enforcement that you think would expose what they did, that was wrong. Either way, I would agree that law enforcement would be glad to see these guys depart off of the case, because they're trying to get ready for trial, and they don't want to chase down old leads and things that they either think they closed out properly and are being mischaracterized now, or maybe they should have looked into more. It's not a sterling investigation up there when the guy who is in jail now was the guy who self-reported being on the bridge years and years ago, and then they misplaced the tip or whatever. That's crap, right? I mean, that's bad. And so if you don't buy the state's argument, you're probably going to start right there and go, how much confidence can I have in these people? Now, to me, the circumstantial chain of evidence against Allen is good. But I wouldn't vote guilty on him either. At this point, I'd have to go to trial, and I'd have to see the witnesses, see all the evidence, and see whether it's convincing or not, and hear what the defense has to say. Now, this thing about the leak of the photos occurred months ago. But I'm wondering here too whether it had to do maybe with because I've heard some about this recent filing on the Franks hearing, that how some of that was filed, and maybe it should have been under seal and it wasn't, or some things like that, and it might have come to a head then. Certainly in the lawyer for the defense lawyer, in his brief that I read through in the stream the other night, he talked mostly about the photos. And so that obviously, for whatever reason, was something that was on everybody's mind at this point. And maybe because it had just recently been confirmed, even if it was leaked a while ago. And that's disturbing. And I'm not accusing the defense of doing that on purpose, that's for sure. And they explained it in their brief that somebody in the office obtained these and distributed them to some people. So that's just terrible. But I would not have, personally, I wouldn't have thrown them off the case for that. So now, were there more things that happened that the judge thought warranted that? I don't know that, so I'm not gonna say that. But I just feel like the judge had decided that X things happened. Some of them that we know, some of them we may not know, that she was going to put some conditions on these guys that they found unacceptable if they were going to stay on the case, and that's why they left. I don't think they would quit the case just to avoid taking a butt chewing from the judge. They seem stronger willed than that to me. So there's certainly some elements of this that we don't know the answers to, that's for sure. So here's somebody saying his attorney is well respected in Indiana. The whole episode has been strange. Yeah, I mean, the brief was a little whack, and some of it's not only in some of how it was written, but just some of the logic. Yeah, I don't know about all that. And it did, 100 pages about Odin is not necessary for the judge to decide whether this search warrant was valid or not. And I'm not, as I've said before, convinced that's on point under the Frank's logic. I think what is on point on the Frank's logic is whether the things that happened on the bridge, the description and stuff like that, if the state misled the judge there, that's appropriate for Frank's stuff. Whether the state disclosed to the judge all other leads and things, because they could have picked out the Kleins, they could have picked out the Odin people, they could have picked out any number of people that he did check into, didn't tell the judge about in the search warrant. And I don't think they have to do that. So I thought the Odin stuff was more for the public, in my opinion, than really for the Franks hearing. That's just my opinion. And I get that. So, that's part of what they were trying to do. So that's how I see that one. I think we'll probably find some more out about this. The lawyer's supposed to put something in writing about his withdrawal, and that despite the desire to not have leaks, some information seems to leak out of there. This is a pretty crazy situation for them to leave the case. This case was supposed to be tried in just a couple of months, so this sucks for Alan, right? Sure, because he had lawyers that worked a lot on his case, and they're now gone. And he's going to have to wait. His case is going to be delayed. And it sucks for the families of the girls, because the sooner this is over, that's generally speaking the better. And to have a delay caused by something like this, which is something happening in the process, it is unfortunate. So I think that's bad. What else do we got? I think that's about it for the morning. We covered lots of cases. I figured it wouldn't take so long for each one, so I threw some extra ones in there. And I think that's going to be about it for this stream. And I appreciate everybody coming by. I hope you like the new intro, and I appreciate the person who sent in that. And if I clicked it a little late, I'll check later. I'm going to repeat it again. If you'd like to intro the show for me, then send me a voice message with however you'd like to intro it, either on the email that I mentioned, or some YouTube private thing you can send me, or Instagram, or Twitter. And I will kick it in here because it's fun to hear from people from different places. And well, that's it, everybody. Thanks. Bye.